Hi everyone, welcome you all. So in the today's video, we will see how many ways we can create a body for post request. So there are three different ways we can create a body for post request. The one is we can hard code the data as part of post request. And the second thing is we can dynamically or randomly we can generate the data. The third thing is by using fixture concept in Cypress. There are the three different ways we can create request body in the Postman or in the post call. Okay, so before that, let me show you the API which I'm going to use. So here I have an API of tourist. Basically, this particular request or this API will create a new tourist in the database. And basically, we have to send a post request. And with this is the URL. And we need to provide the request body. So as part of request body, we have to pass tourist name, tourist email, and tourist location. So when you pass these three details, which will go and create a new tourist record and which will return the response like this. So the ID is got created and this new email ID is different from each and every tourist. So we need to provide the different email address in every time. And the creation time also automatically generated. So let me just change this data and quickly create a new record. So here I'm just saying something. So some random email ID I'm giving. So when I send this request, now it is created a new record. So ID is automatically generated. And this is the email ID, same email ID is displayed and same location. So this is a simple API, which we can use it for creating the tourist record. Now let us see the same thing in Cypress. So how we can create this post request. Okay. So let me go to the Visual Studio Code Editor and here this is my project structure earlier we have created. Now directly go to E2E folder. Under API testing folder, I'm going to create all my API test cases. Now inside this, I'm going to create a new file. I will name it as postcalls.cy.js. So in this, we need to write our script. So first thing, I told you three different ways, right? So first of all, we need to start with the describe. So in the describe, we need to pass two parameters. One is description, let's say API testing, some description, and then specify the arrow function. And this function we need to implement. So inside the describe block, I will create one it block. So this is also taking two parameters. And here I'll show you first approach one. And then we need to write one arrow function. And this function we need to implement. So in this approach, I'll show you how we can hard code the data as part of post request. So we can simply say hard coded JSON object we can create. Hard coded JSON object we can create. So how we can do that? So first thing we will take a constant variable. Okay, so we'll take one constant variable. I'll name it as request body. And the request body, we can directly define the JSON object here. So whatever data we want to pass through post request, we have to specify the data. So if I go back to the Postman, so this is the data we are going to pass as part of the post request. Now I'm just copying the same thing here. Okay, so this is the actual data we want to pass. All right, tourist name and tourist email, and then tourist location. And this is the JSON object which we are going to pass along with the post request. So when you're specifying the data in this, for the especially properties, we do not need to use double quotations. You can just remove them. So this is a simple JSON object which we have created by hard coding the data. So this is the request body we want to send along with the post request. Now let us try to send a post request. So to send a post request, we use something called request module. So I'm trying to use request.cy.request. CY module, we have a request method. So I can say cy.request. So here we have to pass a number of parameters. So what kind of HTTP method you want to send, and then URL, and then body. So these are three parameters which we have to pass. So to pass these three parameters, what I'll do is inside this, in the curly braces, we need to specify the data. So the first parameter is what type of request, what type of HTTP method we want to send, that we need to specify. So method is what? Post. So this should be capital letter, comma, And the second parameter is what? URL. So that also we need to specify. So what URL you want to send? So this is the URL I want to send. And you can use single quotations or double quotations, so no problem. Both will be treated as same in Cypress. So this is my request URL. And then we need to specify the body. So what is the body you want to send along with this request? So we already created this JSON body request, right? So you can simply pass this variable inside here. Or else you can directly copy this here also, nothing wrong. Okay, so you can directly hard code the value like this. So instead of hard coding the value inside this request, I have just created a separate variable. Now I have stored this JSON object in this variable. Now I'm passing this variable here instead of copying this everything. So you can simply pass this variable like this. Okay, now as part of request, I'm sending the post request, post method. This is the URL, and this body I'm going to send along with the request. Okay, so once you send a request, we'll get the response, right? We need to capture the response, and then we can validate the data which is there in the response. So once it is done, the next thing is what? Once you specify the body, you can close this request, and then we need to start the validation. So we use something called then. So if you send this post request, then what we need to do? We have to capture the response. So how can I capture the response? Then here we specify the variable called response. In this, the response will be captured. So whatever the response we will get from this request will be captured into this response. So from this response, again, we have to create an arrow function. So from this response, we can capture the data. So how to capture this data from the response? You can simply say response dot status code, response dot body. So by using multiple options, we can capture the data from this response. So once this request is sent, we will get the response, and that is captured into this variable. So now what are the validations you can do on this response? So here we use something called expect. And what you want to validate in the response, I want to validate the status code first. So I say response dot status, and that should be equal, right? So dot to dot eq, and here you can specify 201 is the status code. And along with the status code, I want to verify the data is correct or not. Like whatever name and email ID I'm passing here, the same data is got created or not. I want to verify that. So simply what you can do is you can say one more expect, and here. So from the response, whatever response we capture from the response body, and what are the attributes are there. If I look at the Postman tool again, so these are the attributes are there. So ID, tourist name, tourist email, location, creation date. ID, creation date will dynamically generated. So these three fields are static. So whatever the data we have passed here, the same data which is got created in the response. So these three fields we can verify. So expect response dot body dot, what is the field is, first field is tourist name. So I'm creating tourist underscore name. And what is the tourist name should be dot to dot eq. And here we can specify. So what could be the student, what could be the tourist name? So here I have given some tourist name here, and the same name I'm expecting. That's how we can do the validation of the particular attribute value. Similarly, I'll write some more expects. So this is for tourist name, and this is for tourist email. And then the next validation is for tourist location. Okay, so tourist email should be whatever email ID we have passed here, same email ID should be here. So here I'm just giving some random email ID, because same email ID we cannot use for multiple records. So I can say Mike123456, some dynamic email ID. So I'm just passing this. Later I'll show you how we can dynamically generate this email ID. So this is the email ID I'm expecting, and the location is what? Paris. So this is a location I'm expecting. Fine. So this is how simply we can write. So first we have created a JSON object and store into request body. And while sending the post request, I'm sharing the same request body, whatever I created here, same request body I'm sending. And then once you send this post request, then what we should validate. So that I specified here. So status code, name of the tourist, and email address, and then location. That's it. So this is got created. So the validation is got done. So what else we need to do? I think we need to close this bracket, and then one more curly brace is required. Fine. So this is how we can simply create a test. So we can simply create a JSON request body and we can directly pass it here. So this is hard-coded data. Okay. So let us try to execute and see whether we are getting right output or not. Let me save the file. And these are the three details we are passing. All right. So we are sending the post request and same request body I'm referring here. And once we get a response, I'm validating these things. Name, email, and then location. Okay. So to run this test, let me try to run this through terminal. I'm opening the new terminal. npx Cypress run -- spec. And here we can specify the location of this file, post calls, copy relative path, and then paste it over here. Okay, so this is the file. So before running, just save this once so that everything will be ready. So once executed, let me just run it. Okay, so now it is got executed, but somehow it is got failed. Let us see why it is got failed. What is saying? The error was thrown in the plugins file while executing the handler for after run event. The error we received it. Okay. Okay, so let's cross check this issue. We have unnecessarily put one more bracket here, so I can just remove that bracket. Let me remove this. Okay, now perfectly fine. So this is our it block. Inside it, I created body, JSON body, and this is the request and validation. And here the request is got closed, and here it block is got closed. So this is a then, and this is for request block, and this is the it block, and there is one more bracket is required, I guess. So let me just check it. I think this is not necessary. Okay, so let me save the file and then execute once again. Okay, so now again it is got failed. Now let us see why it is got failed. Because previously we already executed, right? So with the same email ID. So second time when executing with the same email ID, it is not created. What is saying, please try with the different email address. Now let us try to change this email address. This is the problem when you hard code this data. So every time we have to keep changing the data. Suppose I'm giving some different value. Copy this and then specify here. Okay, now save the file once again and then execute one more time. Okay, now it is perfect. Now it is got passed. So what we have done it basically here is we have created request body by hard coding the data. This is basically a JSON object. And by sending the post request, we are specifying the body along with the request URL. And once you send this post request, we are validating it. Okay. And what we are validating is exactly the data we are validating it along with the status code. So this is the one way we can create a request body for the Postman, post URL, the post request. So now I'll show you one other way how we can create this request body randomly. So here we have hard-coded this data, right? Every time when you execute this code, we have to change this email ID multiple times. So instead of that, we can just generate this data randomly, and then we can pass it to the as part of post request. Okay. So let me show you how we can achieve this. So the same thing, just we need to change this particular body type, and rest of the things exactly the same. We can send the same type of request, same kind of validations we do, but instead of hard coding the data, we will just randomly generate it. Okay. So for that, let me create one more it block. So we can just create one more it block here. Just a second. Yes. Okay. So now let's create one more it block. So this is approach 2. So here we can see how we can dynamically generate the JSON object. So here dynamically generating JSON object. This is another approach. So here what you can do is we create a constant variable request body. So instead of hard coding this data, we will use certain JavaScript functions which will automatically create the data. Okay. So for example, I want to generate the tourist name, right? So we have certain methods in the JavaScript. So you can just remove the hard-coded value. So let us try to use a method called math class. Inside this, we have a random method, and this will return a random value. So it will return some pseudo random number between 0 to 1. And then I'll convert that into string. So I can use a toString method here. So after random, I'm trying to use a toString method. So in the toString method, how many characters you need to have in this name? So I'll just say 5 characters in that name. And then let's try to use one more method called substring of 2. So what this will do is basically this will create a random name. So this statement will create a random name that is applied for tourist name. So now let us see the Gmail. So let's see the how we can create a random email ID. So this is anyway creating the random email, a random string. So again, I'm using the same thing, but I'm concatenating with the Gmail format. I need that string in the Gmail format. So I can just specify like this. So this will create a random string concatenated by the gmail.com. So finally, we will get the valid email format. And the location, you can just hard code this, or else if you want to generate randomly, you can create. Okay. So this is how we can just replace hard coded values in the dynamic way. In the randomly, we can substitute those values. Now, again, same way, the request body, we have to send it here, and the same request will be executed. But at the time of validation, how we can do it? So here, we don't know exactly what type of data will be generated, right? So at the time of validation, we cannot specify the hard coded data. So instead of that, what we can do, we can just take this request body, okay, and here take that request body. Inside the request body, what is the field we are referring here? Tourist name. So dot, you can say tourist name. So what exactly we are doing it from the response, whatever tourist name we are getting here, that we can compare with tourist name which is there in the request body. So whatever data we are passing here, the same thing should be there in the response. That's our ultimate goal. So here, whatever the tourist email we are generated, the same email ID should be here in the response. So take this request body, remove this hard-coded value, and again take the request body dot and tourist email. So here we want to validate the tourist email. And similarly here also, from the request body, whatever we created. So request body and take the location. All right. So whatever the data we are getting in the response, we are comparing with the data which is there in the request. So both are equal, then my assertions will pass. Okay. This is another way. So we can dynamically generate this JSON object, and we can pass this data along with the post request, and then we do the validations. So this is another way. Now let us try to execute this. So this time we don't have any problem with the email, so that every time it will automatically generate. Okay. So I have two it blocks, right? So I just want to execute only this particular it block. So I can say it dot only. So this particular option will execute only this particular it block. You can have any number of it blocks in your describe. So it will execute only this particular it block approach 2. All right. So let's try to execute this. Go to the file and save. All right. Now, again, open the terminal once again. And if you want to execute through a Cypress app, you can also still execute. So go to your terminal. And now again, I'm typing the command npx Cypress run -- spec, and then postcalls.cy.js. So get the relative path, and then specify here. So this time it will randomly generate the data. So now my test is got passed, or spec is got passed. Okay. So here, this time it will generate the data, random name and random email ID, which will be generated. And that body or the data will be passed along with the request. And now we have done some validations. Okay. So this is a second approach. So how we can create dynamically the data, and we can pass that as part of post request. Now, so let me show you how we can do the same thing by using fixture concept. So fixture is something in the Cypress, so we can use it for reusability. So we can prepare the data in the fixture file, and normally that is a JSON file. And that data, we can use it in our test cases. So that is the main usage of creating the fixtures in Cypress. Okay, now let me copy this it block and create one more it block. Okay, so I taken another it block. Just a moment. So this is one first it block and I'm removing this only. So this is my second it block. Now this is my third it block. Okay, so this it block I want to execute now. So approach 3. This is approach 3. Dynamically generated JSON object we already seen. Now this time we are going to use fixture from Cypress. Okay. So how we can do it? So request is exactly the same and validation is also same. So only thing is, instead of writing the body here, we will get this data from the fixture file. So now we need to create a fixture file. So where we can create a fixture file, there is a folder called fixtures in our project structure itself. By default, you can see the fixtures folder. So inside this, we have to create a new file. So I already created one file called tourist.json here. You can just right click and create a new file and provide the name as something and .json is an extension. So whatever data you want to create, you can just specify here in the tourist.json. So if I look at here, the data, every property and the value, both are having double quotations. Okay. So this is the format you have to follow in the JSON. So this is the data. And again, this is hard-coded data, but this is the external file. Okay. We are going to get this data into our request from the external file. This is the JSON file. So here we can change the data if you want. Let me change the data. So I can say John. Okay, Kennedy. So he's a name. And here I will give some random email ID. So 3XYZ, some random email ID. And here I can give whatever. So I say USA, something like this. Okay. So this is the data which I have created in the fixture. Now save the file. So now this data we have to refer as part of post request. So now go to the test. Now here using a fixture, right? So instead of request body, what we can do is, again, request, everything is same. But here we need to change something. You can just remove this body. So first we need to get the data from the fixture. As soon as you have started this it block here, we need to get the data from the fixture. So how to get the data from the fixture? We have a special method is available in the CY module, that is fixture method. So let's try to use CY dot fixture. CY dot fixture. And here we have to specify the name of the fixture. And what is the name we have given is tourist.json. So extension is not required. You can simply say tourist. So this is the name of my fixture file, tourist. And then once you get this fixture, then what we need to do is, then we can get that fixture data in a variable. Okay, so in a variable, we have to get that fixture data. So here I will specify something called my fixture. Or you can say data, whatever you want. Okay, my fixture. And this is the my fixture. And then we need to write one arrow function like this. So this is a way of writing the fixture block. So cy.fixture, this is the name of the fixture. All right. So name of the fixture, we need to close the bracket here. Name of the fixture. Then this is my fixture. And then arrow function will start. So inside this block, we need to write everything. So let me show you once again. So cy.fixture, this is my fixture name. Then, and here we need to write like this. So let's say, let me remove this part. So this is the actual block. Okay. So cy.fixture, we are getting the fixture. Then what we should do, that we can specify here. So what we should do this fixture is, we need to specify then my fixture, one bracket, you can specify the data, my fixture. So what does that mean is, whatever data we are getting from this fixture file, we are storing into this particular my fixture. Okay. Or else simply you can say data. So fixture data, you can use this variable. Now by taking the data, by using this data, we can capture the data from the fixture. Okay. So now we can say data, data dot. So here we need to write one arrow function. So like this. So an arrow function. Now inside this, we can capture the JSON. We can capture the data from the fixture by using this data variable. So what you can do, simply you can create one more constant variable to store the request body inside this constant variable. And here I say request body. equal to data. You can directly assign like this. So from the fixture, we are extracting the data, storing into this variable. Now again, we are storing the data from this variable into request body. So now we have a data in this request body. So now what we need to do is whatever the request URL we have sent earlier, so that everything should be part of this block. Everything should be part of this block. Okay, because fixture blocks we cannot close until unless we send a request and get the response. And after sending the request and getting the response, after validations, then we will close this fixture block. So from the fixture, we are getting this data and storing the data in the request body. Now we are sending the request. And when you're sending the request, the same request body I'm referring here. Then what we are expecting here. So whatever data we have in this fixture file, the same data we are expecting. So now this data I'm expecting. So I just want to change my validation point. So here you can expect like this. In the double quotations, the tourist name should be like this. Tourist name should be like this, right? But every time it is difficult to get this data from the fixture file, right? So what we can do is, here we are getting the status, tourist name, tourist email, tourist location from the response. But the same data we want to get from the request, right? We already captured the data from the fixture file. So by taking the help of this request body, we can get the data. So like this, we can get request body dot tourist name like this. Now how we are validating here? Tourist name from the response, we are comparing with the tourist name from the request body. So from where this request body comes from the fixture file. And from where this response tourist name comes from the response. Once you send the request, then we capture the response in this variable. Now we are getting these three values from the response, and we are getting these three values from the request. So whatever data we are passing as part of request, in the response also, we are expecting the same data. So this is how we can do the validations. Okay, so simple, right? So we can simply create one fixture file, just tourist.json, the same data we are referring here. So we are getting the fixture file data by writing cy.fixture, then storing the data variable, and again assign the data variable into the request body. Now we are passing this request body as part of request and do the validations. So this is how simply we can get the data from the fixture file, right? So let's try to execute. Now I'm going to execute only this one fixture, save the file, right? Now open the terminal, npx Cypress run -- spec, and then name of the file, copy relative path, and then paste it over here. Press enter. Yeah, now it is successfully passed because the data is captured from the particular fixture file. So data is exactly captured from the fixture file and my test is got passed. So basically what we are doing in the validations is we are verifying the data, right? Each and every field data or each and every property data we are verifying, comparing. But sometimes not only data, I want to verify the particular property is also available or not. So suppose in the Postman tool, if I go back to his, the data we are validating, but sometimes we can also validate the properties also, right? Suppose in the response, our tourist name is available or not, tourist email is available or not. So I want to verify the property and also value of the property, both. But currently what we are verifying the value of the properties are correct or not as per expectation. But now I want to verify the property also exists or not. Okay. So for that, what we can do is we can write another additional assertion. So in this, we can also write expect like this, expect. So this time we are going to validate the property in the response. So how we can get those property from the response is simple. Response dot body. So this will give you the response body. So we already captured the response here, right? So as soon as you send a post request, the whole response is captured into the variables. Now here, what exactly I'm expecting from the response.body, dot has property, dot has property. Which property you are looking for? I want to verify the tourist email is present or not. So in double or single quotations, you can specify tourist underscore email. Tourist underscore email is present or not. Not only this property, the value also we can verify. So what is the value you're expecting is tourist name. So tourist email. So this is the value, right? Whatever email you are passing as part of request body, you are expecting the same email address. So this is another validation point. So here, this will verify the property availability along with the value. So whatever property is there, the property value is this one or not, it will verify. So this is another way we can put an assertion. And the same assertion we can write in another way. There are multiple ways we can write an assertion here. So we can say expect, and again same response.body. Response.body. Here, we are verifying the property and the value, right? Similarly here, dot, you can use something called to.have dot property, to.have dot property. And again, same parameters we can pass. So whatever you want to verify, you can just specify the property name and expected value. So property name and expected value. So this is another way we can put the assertion. So here we are just validating only the data of the particular property, but here we are validating the property availability along with the data. Okay, so this is how we can simply send a post request, and then we can validate the response. Now let us try to save the file and execute one more time. And before executing, again, because we already used this data for creating the record, so now we need to change this particular email ID. So here I'm changing some dummy email ID. So here I'm changing the location also. Right. So now save the fixture file. And once you save the fixture file, now go back to the actual file. Now I'm going to run this particular request. So to run this again, one more time, save it and go to the terminal and execute the command npx Cypress npx Cypress run spec. And here we can specify the specification file, copy relative path, then paste it over here. Done. So once executed. Okay, now somehow it is got failed. Now we'll see why it is got failed. So we'll just go back. Using fixture, it is executed. Reference error, response is not defined. Okay, there is a typo error somewhere. Let us cross check. Yes, here there is a typo error. So this is the response actually. You can specify here. Okay, so now let us try to save the file once again. Because this record is already created. Now again, we need to change file. So this email ID, every time we have to change it. Every time when you create a new record, you have to change this. So I'm just giving some random email ID. Save the file and go back to the file again. Save it and run the command one more time. Okay, now my test is got successfully passed. So this time the data is captured from the fixture file. The data is captured from the fixture file. Okay, so these are the three different ways we can create a post request body. So in the first approach is what we can directly hardcode the data in the JSON object that we can directly pass. The second approach is what we can create a JSON object, but the data we are randomly generating by using JavaScript methods. We can randomly generate the data and then we can pass it as part of the post request. Now the third approach is what we can capture the data from the fixture file. So additionally, we have to write this method cy.fixture, fixture name, then capture the data into this variable and again store the data in the request body. Now again passing the request body. So this fixture file we have to maintain under fixtures folder only. So here we have to maintain tourist.json. So this is the fixture file. So this is used for data-driven testing normally. So whatever data we specify in this file, we can reuse the data in our test. Okay. So this is all about different ways of creating the body request in post call. Okay. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we will discuss another concept. Thanks for watching.